If you've been curious about travel hacking, how to use points and miles to get those glamorous free vacations like everybody seems to be doing online these days, then this episode is for you. We have Instagram super hacker Aunt Kara with us to talk about how she's taken over $100,000 worth of family vacations all over the globe using points and miles. So if you're curious about how to earn those points and miles, how long it takes, which cards are best, and generally how to do it, this episode is for you.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money flow.
Hey, babe. What are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about one of my absolute favorite things in the world, points for travel. Get me out of here as quickly as possible, and preferably with points in first class. Thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely your love language is traveling.
Travel is my love language. I'm the person who's Googling my next trip while on the trip, and I feel like I'm always in a better mood when I have something to look forward to. And today
You always say you're also in a better mood when you have a margarita in hand and you don't have to clean any dishes.
Yes, I don't want to do laundry. I want a marg in my hand. I don't want to fold laundry, do the dishwasher. I want to get out of that normal day-to-day routine of the kids get out of the house and what do? I empty the dishwasher every morning. I don't want to do that. So get me on a vacation. That's what I want to do.
Where you don't have to cook.
Where I don't have to cook, I don't have to clean, and even better if I can do it and I can use points for all the things that we spend money on all the time anyway. Give me something for spending my money. And so today we are talking to somebody who does that way better than we do. I think we are barely scratching the surface when it comes to points and miles and all of those credit card perks. But today we have somebody with us that is going to teach us her ways, and that is Aunt Kara. Kara, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Jessica and Brandon. It's good to be here.
We are so excited. So for anybody who doesn't know Aunt Kara, get up from under that rock that you're living in because you need to know her. She is fabulous. So let's get into this bio, and then we're going to get into picking her brain on how she has taken these amazing trips on points and miles and all the things. Aunt Kara is a trusted and respected Instagram influencer, inspiring over 100,000 followers to make good decisions with their money and build wealth. She's even better known for sharing travel hacking information on how to reduce the cost of travel by earning and redeeming points and miles. Over the past 12 years, she has redeemed $125,000 worth of points toward travel for herself and her family. That is a large amount of money. Kara is not just a travel hacker extraordinaire. She is an IT professional of 30 years, a mother of 2 college kids, a wife of 30 years to her husband, Mark. They live in the Midwest, and they are 100% debt-free, including mortgage. And you guys are doing all the investments in the stock market, and you plan on retiring in the next 2 years. So congratulations for all of those things. You are winning at life, Kara. We're so glad to have you.
I don't know, if money's a big piece of life, we all know that. So I feel like you could check the box that we've won on the financial front, but it's been quite a journey and a lot of years to get to this point for sure. In every aspect, yeah.
I love that you said that because one of the things that I see repeatedly in your content is that you are reminding people you don't just wake up with hundreds of thousands of points, right? This takes planning, it takes preparation, it takes intentionality. And the people you're seeing who are taking these amazing trips, you didn't just wake up with the points, you have to really plan for it. So definitely want to talk about that. But before we get into all of that goodness, we have to get into your first money memory. Can you share that with us?
So my first money memory was absolutely the first time I started babysitting. And that was the first job I ever had, first real job that I wasn't doing something for mom and dad, chores, and they're throwing me a couple dollars here or there. But I began babysitting, when I was in 7th grade. I think I was 12 years old or something like that. They were pretty generous with I was getting paid more than my friends with babysitting. And so I was sacrificing weekend nights on a regular basis, not spending the night with friends and things like that, because I thought I'm a fool to pass up this money. And I also love the family, and it was nice. And the concept of me being able to have my own money to make choices on how I wanted to spend it was like, I loved that feeling of power, like that I had the ability to make a choice versus all the years of my life where I said to mom and dad, like, please get me those jeans. I mean, when you're 12, like, think about where your priorities are, like it was usually something, and I was a girl, fashion and things like that. And, the ones that were just too pricey, and my mom and dad were pretty frugal, and it paid off for them. But I loved the feeling that, like, now I have the ability to buy what I want to buy, and nobody can tell me no. Like, if that's what I want, I have the money in my pocket now, and I was a good saver. So that money was not in and out of my pocket. I had big visions all the time. And again, the big visions might have been some name brand jeans that, my mom wouldn't get for me, but I had goals, and I got to know that rhythm of, like, work, sacrifice, then get what you want. Again, wouldn't advise everyone to run out and buy designer jeans at this point, but when you're 12, and that was like something you couldn't have because you were at the mercy of someone else's rules. But then, to have that in your hands, and that control and that power, that was like so impactful to me, and still was like my mentality. Now my priorities changed, but that's been my mentality all along. Like, save up, don't pay off, right? Save up front. Do not pay off. Like, I wasn't asking mom and dad, let me borrow it because I think I'll babysit enough for the next few weeks to pay you back. Like, never was that. It was like money up front, save, and then you get your reward. So that concept, like, even when I was little, I remember feeling like, this is cool. I can actually get what I want now. So
I love that.
That's my money memory.
Do you feel like once you were sacrificing your weekends and your girlfriends were at their sleepovers and you were working, and now you also talked about saving the money, do you feel like when you were working for it, it became more difficult to spend on the name brand jeans versus if your parents would have just bought it for you? Like, did you think about it longer,
I don't think at that age I really did. Like,
Okay.
I had my goal, like, I knew ahead of time. I had something specific that motivated me to do it. So, no, I don't think it was hard to spend when the time came. Because I kept doing that. I think during a lot of my teenage years, I was not investing and saving, like, for big stuff when I was younger. I didn't start that whole, cycle, like, or not cycle, but that interest in doing that until after I was out of college. When I was younger, it just, whether it was jeans or buying 14 karat gold earrings or whatever. Oh, I just knocked out my earring.
Oh.
The prize, I guess, or the reward was different, but I don't think it was hard because it was like my motivation. So I needed that reward, and then I'd move on to the next reward. So no, I don't think it was at that point. Now I have different things that go through my mind, and I have different types of things to consider when I am going to spend a big chunk of money. But back then it was like there were really no competing priorities. I mean,
Right.
You're young, you have no responsibilities, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
No, I always tell Jess one of my core money memories was when I was 14 years old, and my mom would only spend a certain amount of money on a pair of shoes, and this was more specifically for basketball. And I wanted a pair of Jordans. Never had a pair of Jordans before, and she was willing to spend a certain amount, and the difference I had to make up for.
Yeah.
And that was the longest that it ever took me to actually make a decision, because I was looking do I need these shoes? Maybe I could buy these other ones that are just as nice, but maybe less expensive. I ultimately, same as you, went ahead and got the shoes, but definitely took me way longer to think about it because obviously I was using my own money, and literally that has filtered into how I process things even now as an adult.
Yeah.
probably
It's harder to spend your own money than
probably
it is to spend somebody else's.
Yeah, I probably
always.
overthink some purchases a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I maybe overthink now, but not back then.
So let's get into what everybody wants to learn more about, which is travel hacking, points, miles. How do you get started? How do you know which cards? And I know from my research, you started your social media Aunt Kara account because of the nieces and nephews that you were really just trying to help, become financially literate and teach them things. So can you walk us through how you went from, hey, I'm going to teach my 7 nieces and nephews to 105,000 followers on Instagram and then some? How did that happen?
So I have loved talking about money, like for a lot of my adulthood and personal finance. And when people talk about, being big readers and things like that, if it's not like a personal finance book, I'm not going to read it. Like, that's just how I am. That's the stuff I like. Like, I want to learn, I want to gain something. I want to be truly interested in the content. And I'm not just like a casual, reader of fiction and things like that. So
I know how you feel.
yeah. So I've been reading books since like out of college. The first book I read around personal finance was The Millionaire Next Door. And I talk about that quite a bit on my account because I read it when it was first published, because that's how old I am. And I don't even know how I found out about it. Like, I must have read it somewhere in a magazine or newspaper, because we obviously didn't even have internet or social media to share that. But I was fascinated, and really a lot of it, my content even talks about the psychology of money and your mindset about it, like more so than the mechanics of certain ways to save and stuff like that. But my nieces and nephews have always come to me for years. Like, I'm very close to them. I have been since the day they were born. They're all older than my children. So they're like kind of our first set of kids. And I'm very close to my sisters. And so it was like, Aunt Carol was there all the time. I saw every one of them on the day they were born. Like, that's how, so they've come to me for years about money, career advice, things like that. And it's just was natural as they got older and became adults and kind of moved on with their own lives and careers, that I needed a mechanism to reach out to them and be able to stay connected, because we weren't seeing each other as much. I wasn't going to their basketball games or tennis matches and things like that to be able to talk to them and interact. It was like, how do I continue to be there for you? And the Instagram account was something I told them all about before I even created the account. And I said, if I create this account and I want to share, and that's why I kept it at Aunt Kara too, because I know money is my passion, but I'm like, I will probably throw in some other tips here and there. And so I didn't want to make it my title be anything more than Aunt Kara, because that's what they knew me as. And, they come to me for different things, and they are all like, of course I'll follow you. Yes, that makes sense. And I go, you can absorb the content as you want to. I'm not going to push it in your face. You can come and reach out and read my stuff, but at least like I've got words of wisdom from my experience that I can share and advise as I think through your stage in life and look back to where I was and the right way to view things and the kind of pressures and experiences I think you're going through. Let me put it out there. And that's what they like from me. So I said, I'll leave my account open and it'll be what it is. And, other people clearly were interested in what I had to say, had questions. We had lots of good conversations, whether it was through comments or DMs, and it really continued to evolve. The travel piece kind of snuck in there, I don't know, about a year later, when once in a while I would talk about the fact that I went on a vacation, but I used points and miles. People said, tell me more, right? People are like, how does that work? And I was like, okay, but I knew my message had this credit card element in it about signing up for credit cards, right? And I'd been in the personal finance space with a lot of folks that were very anti-credit card, with reason, and I completely agree, and we can talk about that, responsible use of credit cards. But I said, if you've got the finances under control, your finances under control, and that means you are truly credit card debt free, then let's talk about this whole points and miles game, hobby, whatever you want to call it. So that content kept picking up, and more people were asking. Now, my nieces and nephews always were texting me about it. Like, once they had good credit scores and good jobs and they didn't have credit card debt. I've got one nephew who's like, all right, he'll text me, he goes, give me my next card. And he's like, I got a trip with blah, blah, blah. And so they're texting me about that behind the scenes. But I realized, okay, if I do this thoughtfully and educate people about this whole, avenue, the fact that you save so much darn money And honestly, like, you know, my followers are in an age range where travel, like you, like, is huge. They love it. I love it. That this is what people want to hear about. So then I picked up the travel hacking content as, you know, something that now I kind of do 50-50 personal finance and the travel. But it's so fun and so exciting and just gets people all, I mean, the feedback I get from that is so fun. And the trips that people tell me they took because they learned something from me. And the fact that people would tell me, I was so scared of credit cards and you helped me figure it out. And we don't have any credit card debt. And I realize I can pay these things off as much as I want, as frequently as I want, which is a wonderful thing. That like, I'm not at risk of digging myself into some hole when, you know, all I'm doing is getting more points so I can save more money for the next vacation I take. So it's just been that's like the evolution. It's just kind of morphed into this. And again, the points and miles side of my content's like the really fun stuff. So I'm glad that people responded to it because I love to talk about it. I love to write about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're spending the money anyway, right? We have to buy the toilet paper and the strawberries and the things.
100%.
So you might as well get something back, you know? It makes
And
you
that-
feel better
that's
when you
key.
take that trip.
People immediately associate credit cards to people buying things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. And I mean, like, that is obviously against everything I stand for. You know, people think credit cards go buy luxury items, go buy,
Right.
go on a pay for a $10,000 vacation, like all that. And I'm like, no, everything you do practically now takes credit card. You know, your cell phone bills take credit card. Your internet takes credit card. Your insurance companies take credit card. Now, as long as there's not an additional fee to do that, because you never want to pay more money just to, you know,
Put it on a card.
use a card and earn points and miles because you actually don't earn any in that way because you're paying more to use the card. But my point is that, yeah, you're doing groceries, gas, you're, I mean, there are some even daycares out there that take credit card and don't charge fees, which blow my mind. Like that would have been a dream for me.
We had one
We had one.
at one point, but then
we switched, and I instantly was like, "Do you take a credit card?" And they were like, "No," and I was like, oh, "The amount of points from that alone!
my gosh,
thousands
I would
every
have been
month."
swimming in points as much as we were
Yes.
paying in daycare with our two kids.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
was a
just
blow.
like those are things that are, if you budget and you're staying within your budget, how you actually pay doesn't matter. You know, like, I
Right.
mean, again, as long as you're not paying more. But the other key is, you know, you have to be disciplined. You have to know that money is in your account before you use that card. So you're not, you know, you're again not extending yourself and floating a loan to yourself. If you don't have the money, don't buy it, right? Like kind of thing, or don't pay with a card. So it's just those characteristics have to, and fundamentals have to be there with people to really, you know, do this the right way, or else you're gonna end up in more trouble. And it's not, all this fun of points is not worth it when you're just digging yourself into more debt and have these insane interest rates that you're paying on credit cards. I mean, it is,
Right.
it's almost a crime how much they're charging.
I
for
mean, some of
interest
them are
rate.
pushing 30%.
Right,
27.9.
We're in
I mean,
20s. It's insane.
yeah, it's wild.
Like it is
like
the worst debt you could possibly have.
Oh yeah, and like you said, it's all about personal responsibility. You
Right.
know, having a credit card in and of itself is not bad. What ends up happening is that you don't have personal accountability, and that's where you get yourself in trouble.
Discipline.
And now, like you had stated, you know, obviously, if you know that you're that type of person where that can lead to that, then yeah, having a credit card's probably not a good idea. I don't like some of the, you know, financial literacy influencers that put out a blanket statement that credit cards are bad, because it's not the case. It's like a lot of things in
The
life.
lack of discipline.
There's a lot of things in life that like it just basically boils down to personal responsibility and using it the correct way.
Right.
What would you say, Kara, to somebody who's like, okay, I want to get started, but I don't need 6 or 7 cards, right? Like, I'm sure you have a ton of cards. We pay over $1,100 for the cards that we have in fees, right? Because
But we use them and they come out on the plus side.
right. So we have to make sure that you're maximizing, like, what are you actually paying for? And, you know, I think we probably have a lot of similar cards, you know, some that have a lower annual cost to have the card, and then some, that the Amex Platinum goes up to $695. That's the most expensive one we have.
Sure.
But for anybody looking to get started, how would you advise them on which card to get? Like, what is that process, and how do you recommend people get started?
So I tell people that I think the smartest way to get started is to pick a trip. It gets back, and I say it's very similar to personal finance, where you have a target goal of what you're trying to work for and work towards, because it helps direct you making the right decisions with what card you choose. So when someone can come up with, I want to go to Maui, I want to go to Orlando because I want to go to Disney, whatever. I mean, that they understand what they're going to use the points for before they even sign up for the card, and they understand the type of brands they can use. If you open it up to a place like Orlando, you can use pretty much any hotel brand in existence because they are all are all there. But maybe with the airlines, you're someone that wants to fly out of Atlanta. Delta is going to be probably something that you're going to be more interested in. Maybe if you're out of Chicago, you're going to, well, it has everything, but United's hubs there. And so maybe United miles are more valuable to you, but you look at the brands that you could potentially use. Look up how many points you need, because you can do all of this before you even sign up for that first card. You can go on all these airline and hotel websites and search, how many points is it per night? Like, a lot of people are like, how do I judge? I'm like, you can look that up yourself, and you don't even have to be, have any points in your loyalty account. You don't even have to have a loyalty account. It'll tell you, there's a toggle between cash and points. Select the points, do a dummy booking, like you're going to fly there on some date, and see how much it is round trip. So you are really crystal clear on what you're trying to accomplish. And then again, when you're making the decisions of what to sign up for, maybe the credit card sign up bonus is 50,000, but for your trip, you're going to need 100,000, but it sets your expectations, right? So well, maybe I'm going to get 50% of this trip paid for with points. So I need to save up the other amount with cash, because it's unrealistic for me to have that many points by the time I want to go. So doing that diligence up front when you're just starting out, to me, is the smartest way to do it. And it's also, it's really fun, because once you get a taste of it, because you're going to use those points and you do all the bookings, so you've got it all planned out. It's so fun and feels so good. You're going to be so motivated to do it again. There's a lot of people I know that will be like, I have points here, and I signed up for this once, and I've got these points hanging out here. What should I do with them? And I'm like, oh, you kind of did it backwards. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you can go through the motions of doing the research again and say, well, do any of the brands I have and any of the points I have match up to what trip I'm trying to do? But sometimes people just do it blindly because they hear there's a great credit card offer, and then they realize, I don't, if it's Capital One Venture, and they look and go, wait, I can't even use any of those transfer partners, and I thought I'm supposed to transfer these points out. Some of the things are mismatched, and they aren't able to effectively use the points the way they want to, and then I'm like, oh, it's, you're just going to have to, you're going to have to do some more work and figure out another type of trip or something. But that's the way I tell people is, if you start with the trip, that's the best way to do it. Because then you're just really focused. You're not just, again, signing up left and right for new card bonuses and having tons of points and being overwhelmed with I don't even know what to do now. I don't,
right.
That's my opinion. Now, if you are someone that says, well, I've got big expenses coming up, I can't figure out what trip I want to do yet, but I know if I route these through a credit card, I can meet minimum spend quickly, and I just want to do something, then I do advise people always go with one of those flexible bank cards, like the ones that earn Chase Ultimate Rewards. They earn American Express membership rewards, or Capital One Venture points, or Citi Thank You points. Those are the flexible points that you can use for multiple brands, whether you transfer them out or you use them within the booking portal, because then you aren't aligned with a brand that you can't use. So that's, if you're in a situation, because there are times, right, where you've got some big car expense and maybe you've saved up the money, but you're like, oh my gosh, I can almost get to minimum spend just with this one swipe, then it's like time is of the essence. So you kind of have to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So that's like the second alternative. But again, if you want to be thoughtful about it, I say pick your trip and then figure out what points you need and then move forward.
I like it.
What I like about it is that it 100% aligns with a lot of things that we talk about in this podcast when it comes to the financial planning aspect. You start with the end goal in mind. You got to figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish and then work backwards from there. And how you said before, you know, the person that has points on this card, points on that card, because they didn't go into it with a plan in place. They just kind of were just going through the actions, and then now they don't necessarily maybe have a problem per se, but it's more difficult, and they have to kind of start the process over again.
Well, you're
Right.
like piecemealing. You're like, oh, I have 12,000 points here and 60,000 points here, and then it becomes really, it's confusing. You get frustrated because then you're like, oh, I can't transfer these, or I can't. So I think
Right.
that, you know, you're project planning your trip backwards. Like, where do I want to go? How am I going to get there? Where do I want to stay? And we kind of stay within, like, we usually do Marriott properties. We usually do Hyatt properties. So we know which two cards are going to get us those points, right? We typically prefer to fly Delta. We probably should move to Atlanta for that reason alone. But, you know, I mean, so we have those things in mind of like, okay, these are the airlines that we like to fly. Like our friends that fly out of Charlotte, they usually fly American. I try to avoid American at all costs. It's just not my airline, you know, like it's, that could change, but for today.
Unless they want to sponsor the show.
Right. But for today, it is not my airline, you know? So you have to really think about like, how do you like to travel? And I think what you said about pick the trip and then pick the card and match those things up. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it's like anything in life, like anything that's of any sort of substance that you want to accomplish. You have to have a plan in place to do it successfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can-
And then even the destination honestly matters too with, well, and when I say destination, I'll say if you're a domestic traveler or you're an international traveler. So
That's true.
that completely can change your strategy. Because there's a lot of people who ask me like, why don't you talk more about American Express membership rewards? Because some travel hackers just think that's the end all be all points program. And I'm like, and I bet you they travel internationally and they like to do things like business class for, you know, first class, whatever, upgrading their flights, right?
Lounges, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, and because they have a lot of international partners, and they have a lot of different offers that are more attractive to international travel, and so it's like, you know, that isn't so much my thing. I'm a domestic traveler just because I am. I mean, it's just been the way our family's routine and things and our schedules. So, you know, that points program isn't exactly, you know, one that I pursue very hard. I mean, it's a great program. It's just more of, I pick what's valuable to me. I don't just go for like whatever I read about is the latest and greatest thing. I have to say, but what's my travel style? Where am I going? What do I need? And not just do something because it was great for someone else. Yeah.
I hate to bring it back to financial planning again, but it's so spot on because you were saying like it's so spot on in regards to the individuality. I think so much stuff on social media is so general, when in reality a lot of the stuff is very specific. So, you know, with you, the travel hacking aspect, do you want to travel internationally? Do you want to travel domestic? That makes a big difference in regards to how you're going to approach and the process to getting to where you want to go. And it's the same thing with, you know, financial planning. And the whole thing with like financial planning is like, what do you want to accomplish? Not what your neighbor wants to accomplish or somebody else that's around the same age as you. What do you specifically want to do? Because that is going to make a big difference in the details that need to be put in for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that too. That's why, I mean, there's just so many similarities with that approach. And I think maybe that's why, you know, the world of personal finance has kind of intersected with travel hacking. And it's not just because you're saving money. It's not just about that aspect. It's about the fundamentals of who you are and the approach you use. Those are the things that, like, when you have those characteristics, you're going to be a good fit for managing your money well and being able to strategize with your points and use those strategies effectively. back to your point of personal finance, I was recently, I don't want to say attacked, but criticized by several that were not longtime followers over on Threads, on Threads, Meta Threads, and they about me talking about paying off my house early and how dumb that was. And
Brandon does not believe in in-house payoffs.
and that's okay.
I
Personally.
personally,
To the point. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying
personally,
was not one of the people who commented.
No. He would never.
But
He
no,
would never.
This
yeah.
is the thing. I mean, I'm just trying to illustrate exactly what you were saying about the fact that, like, people came at me and said, that's so dumb, right? You should not do that. You should use your money and be investing all that extra money instead. And I said,
like, I'm doing
not
both.
for what my goals were, and not for what my circumstances were, and what personally and emotionally even I wanted to achieve. And it didn't mean that I wasn't able to build wealth. I mean, you guys know, I'm retiring in 2 years. It's not like I sacrificed, everything in the world to make that happen. And now I'm broke, like, as far as, building wealth, and I've just dumped it all in my house. So it's like, it's very circumstantial and individualized. It doesn't mean I'm right and someone else is wrong, or they're right and I'm wrong, whatever. So, we're just, there are all kinds of flavors of the best way to do things in both spaces, in points and miles, as well as personal finance.
and that's the thing
great
that I
link.
think a lot of people miss, is that there is not one singular way to achieve a goal that is the only way to do it. There's so many different options depending on, like you said. I think a big one that has been lacking for many years within finance is the emotional aspect. Everyone has an emotional attachment to their money. So just because, quote unquote, mathematically it may not make sense to pay off your house, but the amount of emotional relief that it would give someone to have, not have that debt that they're paying back, you really can't put a dollar sign on that.
Right.
So it really just depends on what works for you. And I think I hate when people kind of crap on other people's ideas. We're like, there's more than one way to be successful and
Yeah.
Right.
accomplish things.
Right.
Yep.
And also, we're millennials, you're in a different generation. And so the things that you're doing versus what we're doing, what our parents experienced who are in a different generation, right? All of those numbers, matter. Like, I had a conversation with my dad the other day, and I was complaining to him about which camp to put the kids in. And I was like, well, our daughter really likes this camp, but I think our son, who's going to be in this kind of camp for the first time, would really like this one, but it's going to be double the price. So we're looking at, $300, $400 versus $600. And he literally said to me, and I love my dad, and if he listens to this, he'll understand, but he was like, just drink a couple less iced coffees, babe. And I was like, Dad, how much iced coffee do you think that I'm drinking? We're talking about $600 worth of track out camp for 1 week for 2 of our kids. Like, have you ever paid $600 for me and my brother to go to camp? Like, this is not the iced coffee problem, okay? It's not.
Right.
So,
Yes, everybody has an opinion, though, right?
everybody. Yes. Yeah. Well, and
when it's not their situation, they still have their
something
own
to say.
own opinion. Yeah.
Exactly. I do want to talk about, that backwards planning, and you posted a lot about your trip to Hawaii that you took with your family. And I mean, it looked incredible.
That wasn't hype. I wasn't just hyping it up because I was making some pretty social media posts. That was absolutely the best trip we have ever done on Points and Miles. And I've gone to Hawaii 12 times, guys. So it's not because it was Hawaii and you're supposed to think that's like a big deal. It was just everything we did, all the points, the value, the people we were with, the age of my kids. That was the best trip. I'm out
been
of
to Hawaii
50,
once, and I
53
loved
I've
it.
done, whatever. Did you love it? Yeah.
I did love it. I like the vibe of Hawaii. I feel like
I do
even though you're in the United States, it doesn't feel like you're in the United States,
doesn't.
and there's just a completely different vibe of the way that people are there
I agree.
in a very positive way.
Yes, it is. It's the most relaxed, happiest, best feeling, and that's why we keep going back. That my husband and I've had. I mean, Hawaii was our very first travel hack, and it was Honolulu at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and I got that in. And this this isn't even in the 125,000 points or dollars that I've, done in the last 12 years. This was back in 1999 or 8. Anyway, oh wait. Okay, anyway, 90s, late 90s. And I traveled a lot for work. So I was a consultant, an IT consultant, and I flew out on Mondays, flew back on Fridays every single week. It was a nightmare. But I was young and I knew it was good for my career. So anyway, it was a good way to earn a lot of points too. And so it was the old fashioned way. It had nothing to do with credit cards. And I had United miles and had Hilton Honors points from all my travel. And it kept me motivated too. I was like, I got to hang on. I'm not going to quit because we're going to take this trip to Hawaii. We're going to make this worth it. And once we went to Hawaii, like we were like, oh my gosh, I've never been sadder to leave a vacation in my life. And so we kept going back before kids and after kids. When they were babies, we did not care. Our kids have gone a ton, and it'd been about 3 years since we'd been there because of COVID and everything else. We just took a break from going there and the kids' activities in high school. And then finally, when my daughter graduated, and she said, yeah, let's make this her graduation trip. And I was like,
Yes.
yeah, this is, I'm all in with this one. So 6 people. We took her best friend and took my son's girlfriend of 5 years as well. And, again, they're older, 19 and 22. It was a blast, just a blast.
I love that. Well, it looked like, and I would love for you to maybe break down how long it took you to plan for this trip and the points that you used. And, I think you've mentioned things that I never even considered, about when we use points, it's airlines and hotels, but you, I believe, did like almost like a vacation rental, right? Like a condo type style, looked beautiful. So those are those aspects that we haven't even, we haven't scratched the surface there. So would love to know how you planned this massive, amazing family trip.
Yeah. So I started in 2 years in advance. So we went in June, and June. So it was probably in the spring-ish of 2022 that I got my game plan together. And I was researching, obviously with 6 people, like, were we going to do multiple hotel rooms? Which programs could we use points for to do condos instead? Like, what are some of the best avenues to do that? And that was going to be, I knew that would be my biggest challenge, right? Like, flights are flights, and we had some flexibility in dates, so we could try to like not fly during peak days and things to try to like, not have to have too many points for that or excessive points. So when I learned, and I talked about this for years now, about using Wyndham Rewards for Vacasa condos, or it's basically condos or houses. It's basically a competitor to Airbnb or VRBO. It's very, very small compared to them, but they're out there. And I started researching, like, where are these properties? Like, and they are everywhere. I didn't really know a whole lot about them. And the redemption rate until this spring, because this spring they increased it, they did this like kind of flat model that just seemed too good to be true, but it was true that it would take 15,000 points to get a 1-bedroom place. If you wanted a 2-bedroom, 30,000, 3-bedroom, 45,000 points. And I'm like, that is amazing, because the value of some of these places was, hundreds and hundreds, right? And so like the value then of your points was really high per point. So then I was like, okay, let me look at the properties in Hawaii, and there were a good amount to choose from. Like, and we kind of had the flexibility, like, I'm like, oh, if we did a 2-bedroom, somebody can just sleep on the pullout. And like, we're just, I could get creative with this, and we'll see how we can do. So I was on a mission to get Wyndham Rewards. And to get Wyndham Rewards, they have a couple good flexible bank cards that transfer to Wyndham Rewards, and it's Venture and Citi. So, or Capital One and Citi. So the Venture card and the Citi, now it's called Strata Premier, those points transfer 1-to-1 over to Wyndham. So I definitely was on the lookout for the high signups, but I needed to make it happen though sooner rather than later because the clock is ticking and it won't wait for you. And I can't sign up for too many cards at the same time. But what's wonderful is when you've got a friend or a spouse or a partner, you both can do it, and you can double the fun with earning those points. And with programs like Venture, you can actually merge your points before you transfer them over to a Wyndham. So I was on a mission. Those were the cards I was targeting. Venture for both of us. We only got one city. And I do now have the Wyndham Business Earner card as well. So we had cards to work with and accumulate this nice pile of points. And it took, here's what was my deadline. I knew I couldn't book the property until 11 months out. So I knew I had a year. That's another, thing too.
The planning aspect.
Yeah, I started, 2 years in advance because you have to take the time to actually sign up for cards, keep accumulating the points. But then when you're ready to book, they've all got to be in your account. Well, I knew I had up to that date of the next year to have enough points to when the calendar opened, I was right there and my points were ready. So that's how I did that room or the condo. And it's a process in itself that could be a whole nother podcast on how you book. You have to call in because I wish it was all online and it's not. You have to call in and you need to have a backup plan if your place isn't available on points when you call in. And it's just, is a process. But again, I knew it was worth it because if we could get this, and we ended up with a 3-bedroom condo that was amazing. For all of us, it was going to be so comfortable and so beautiful. It was ocean view. I mean, it was nuts. And the fact that I was flexible with dates too when I booked, that is a key thing with travel hacking, that made it very doable for us too. And then the flight stuff, you've got a lot of options with airlines going to Hawaii. So I'm a Southwest Airlines nut. I'm very open about that because it's a good airline out of the Midwest. They are so good. It's so easy to redeem their points. They also have the companion passes that no other airline has, where it's an unlimited pass. And that means that you can get someone and pay someone travels with you and you don't have to redeem any points for them. So we had 2 passes and I'm like, this would be crazy to try to go with any other airline because we're already going to have 2 flights for free out of the gate and no pun intended. And then also have, the ability with all their Southwest business cards and their personal cards, we can figure out how to make this happen and get those points.
I feel like the first time you flew Southwest was not too long ago.
No, it was when I took that girl's trip to Texas and I was like, what are our seats? And they were like, we don't have assigned seats. And I was like, I don't know what words just came out of your mouth. I don't understand what's happening.
You're talking another language to me.
Yes. But, I got used to it.
Did you have anxiety about that?
100%. That does not work with my OCD type A personality.
So
I mean, I get it now, but it's not my preferred way.
Well, they're changing.
I need a seat number.
Yeah, they're changing now. New announcements, right? So I guess you weren't alone. We fly Southwest. If you go out on my page and look at my travel log of what are all the trips I've hacked over those 12 years, you'll be like, Lord, when did she not fly Southwest?
Right. But if it makes sense, I mean, we have our own Southwest hub here. And it's great. The times that I have flown Southwest, it's been a good experience. I mean,
I used to like it because if I get on there sooner, I'm not a small person. So I'm not going to be the first person that people want to sit next to.
Yeah, they're not going to pick your row. Okay.
Yeah. And with the small kids, we flew them when we just went to, in March, not just, but in March, we did a Disney cruise. And, they have the family boarding. So we all got to sit together. The kids had a blast. It was fine. But would I fly from here to Hawaii? I don't know.
Well, now you can maybe with them changing the seating thing. So you don't get exactly
that. So it changes next spring, I think. I think they're going to... Yeah, it's sometime next year that they're starting. Yeah.
I think people either had it doesn't matter, I don't care, or had really strong feelings. I've never met anybody that was like in the middle, I think it was like, oh, the open seating is great, or people would be like, oh, this is awful, and
My
those
family
were the
has
two
loved
opinions.
it. I know, we're like mad. We loved it. Actually, we did. But we would also sometimes buy like the early bird because we weren't paying for the ticket because we're using points. Like if we had to pay an extra $50 to do like the early check-in thing where we, be towards group A or at the
Right.
beginning of group B. So we never like ran into, we've never had any problems. Even when the kids were little, like I didn't panic about not having a seat by them. I'm like, it'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
Figure it out. No, I love that. I love it. Were you gonna ask something? Okay. What if I know you have a lot of favorite cards and cards that you talk about, but if for anybody listening, and again, we're gonna encourage people to work backwards, look at the trip, where do you want to stay, how do you want to get there, right? And then start looking at some travel partners. But is there a good beginner card that you do recommend for people that doesn't have a crazy high annual fee and that has those flexible points where you can use them for miles or hotel? Like where would you tell people to look to get started there?
So the top two cards, and you're going to see this from everyone, but I mean, this is my honest opinion too. It is both the Chase Sapphire Preferred card and the Capital One Venture card. Now, people always put the Chase Sapphire ahead, and when they have their increased sign-up bonuses, I mean, I always, and it only comes around like once a year. I say, go for it. Go for it if you're
When
deciding.
it's like the 75,000
Yeah,
points
yeah,
for sign up. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just like, go for it. Pick that over Venture in a heartbeat. But the great thing about Capital One Venture that Sapphire doesn't give you, there's two things. One, you've got that 2x earning rate for anything. So you get 2 points per dollar, which is worth 2%. That's 2 cents. And it's for anything you ever route through that card. So if you don't have some big portfolio of cards and you want to keep it simple, I mean, there's nothing simpler than knowing I'm getting 2 points for every dollar I spend, whether I'm spending it to fix my car, I'm spending it when I go out to eat, I'm spending it on whatever, gas, groceries, all that stuff. I'm getting 2x, right? So Sapphire, it's more variable depending on what you're using it for. Sapphire, you're going to get 1 point per dollar on many things except for like dining, online groceries, and travel. So it kind of depends on where your spend is too. But if you want to keep it as simple as possible, the Venture is so straightforward. Like you can't get any more straightforward. The thing that people like the Sapphire though for more so than Venture are the transfer partners, because Chase has those great transfer partners that everybody loves, like Hyatt and Marriott and Southwest and United. Like those are the big ones. I mean, there's several more, but so when people are like, yeah, but I need points for United or I need points for Hyatt, then they go to the Southwest route. So I have both cards, love them both. I use them differently depending on what kind of points I'm trying to earn and what I'm spending my money on. I talked about that recently in my, my whole strategy, because I have plenty of cards to choose from. But the Venture, the other side of the other piece of the Venture that Sapphire can't give you, if you're not into the whole transferring your points out, you can redeem those points for any type of travel, for any brand of travel, because you can use those points as a statement credit towards any transaction that codes as travel. So that means if you go book Carnival Cruise, you can, and you use your Venture card to do it, you can redeem those points towards that transaction and reduce the cost of that cruise, which is something, that's harder to just do in a straightforward manner with like some of the Chase cards. So you've got that aspect of, it'll even do it for Uber rides, for rental cars. And some people say they don't want to use the travel portal. So Chase
I
lets
do
you
not like travel portals.
yeah, I know.
I don't like them.
Yeah, Chase lets you, book things like that through their travel portal. But Venture, you can either use the Capital One travel portal, or you just say, forget it. I'm booking straight through the airline. I'm booking straight through the hotel, the rental car company. I don't want to go third party. And you can still apply your points towards that transaction. That's a beautiful thing and makes people feel a lot better. And I can tell you, I'm like you. I don't love booking through the portal. I do book rental car. I never have any problem booking rental cars through portals. I've done it through Chase. But I don't ever want to book an airline through a travel portal because it's so high. There's such high probability now that something's going to happen, whether it's delayed, changed, your plans change. And going through a third party is a nightmare.
Yeah,
when it
I
comes
always
to
book
that.
direct when it comes
Yes.
to that. Yes.
So I've redeemed those venture points myself for my husband and I had to do a trip and Delta was the only direct route to a place we don't usually fly to. And I'm like, well, I don't have any Delta Sky Miles because it's just not one of my things. And and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna book direct. I'm just gonna have to use Venture Miles and book directly through Delta. So, $300 a ticket, booked directly through Delta.com.
Yeah.
And then as soon as those transactions posted, I put 60,000 Venture Miles towards those transactions to wipe it off my statement. And I was just like, okay, that was easy. And if we have any changes and everything, I just still deal straight with Delta and I don't have to go through Capital One. So that's why those cards, and I tell people I use Venture more than I use Sapphire, but it's because you can use it for so many different things. There's so many categories where there aren't really good point multipliers. Like I said, I don't know, we've got 5 cars in our family because of our kids. So we always have car expenses. And that's a key one that get the Venture out, and or an insurance thing where again, we'd get 1 point per dollar for any other points or any other card. So that's kind of why I kind of lean more towards Venture, but don't get me wrong. I mean, that Chase Sapphire card is an absolute gem and I still have mine and use it all the time, especially for dining. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, so I did recently start a spreadsheet with, what are the cards? How much is it costing? When do they renew? Who are the partners? And I could make this spreadsheet way crazier than it is, but I just needed a quick reference guide of, okay, which partners, how many points am I getting? But I have girlfriends who, I know when we go to dinner, they're going to pull out the rose gold American Express because they're getting 5 times the points. But then when we go to the gas station, they're going to pull out the blue whatever card. I don't have the mental capacity to do that. Now, that is, I think, the perfect way to be like, oh, gas goes here, groceries go here, dining goes here, movie theater goes here. I don't have the mental, I cannot. I am too tired. I am too overloaded. So what you were saying about the Venture card, where it's like, I get 2 points for everything. That's nice and easy, right? It's if you don't want to keep the crazy spreadsheet or put a sticky note on each card that says, use this one for gas, use this one for groceries, that's a great way to start because it can feel really overwhelming of which card to use where. And then you also don't want to get into a space where you have all these cards, you're paying, the annual fees and you're not actually getting the benefits.
Right.
And so you don't want to miss out on,
Then you're just wasting money.
then you're literally wasting money. So
Yep.
Yeah. Do you
For
keep a
sure.
spreadsheet? How are you managing all this?
Yeah. And I do have a reference guide, by the way, a free one out there.
We'll make sure to link
I'll
it.
that in the show
Yeah,
notes.
that has a lot of those things that talks about that has the different alliance partners. It has the different transfer partners for each flexible reward program. Yeah, it has a lot of different the average value of a point in membership rewards versus Delta Sky Miles or whatever. I've got a big chart of that too. So yeah,
I'll
I'll
add
share
that to my spreadsheet. Yes,
I'll
please.
share that with you. But I have a spreadsheet, but I don't know. I'm not as methodical as I think some people are about some of it, I mean, again, now I'm at the point where if a new trip comes up, I assess where I am, but I kind of can just remember it. I don't know. I'm just getting it's become much easier.
Becoming in your DNA now.
Yes,
You know
but
what
it's I can't say I know down to the very point, or last number of how many points I have in every account, but I have some kind of general sense.
Yes.
So I don't do a spreadsheet right now. I'm just going to be honest with you. But back in the day, I can tell you 10 years ago I did. 100% I did. Yeah, I charted it and I would update it every month.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no, I was hardcore, but then like I said, now it just I have a lot of it memorized.
Yeah.
It's so
I mean,
bad.
Second nature now.
yeah, when you do it enough. What would you leave our audience with? If there's anybody listening who's, barely scratching the surface, hasn't gotten started, maybe is coming from a place of, my parents told me credit cards are bad, never get one, but I know I can handle it. What would you say to them, or what advice would you leave them with?
Right. I would say budget comes first. And if you are comfortable budgeting and you are sticking to your budget within reason, right? We all, don't quite hit it every month, but don't go crazy. Just look at credit cards as a tool, not some additional complex financial strategy, but just more of it's just a mechanism of payment that shouldn't alter anything you're doing with the budget that you have. And if you are in a situation where you think you could potentially not be able to reconcile, like, why is my checking account balance so big right now? But wait, I've been using my card a lot this month. You can pay on on those cards as much as you want throughout the month. And I know there are some people who make every payday their credit card payoff day. Like they get the money out of their account long before the bill is actually due, and they have a rhythm and a system of doing that. So their checking balance isn't so out of whack, and then they get, that they think they have more money than they do, and then that credit card bill comes at the end of the month and they're like, "Oh man, I can't even pay that. Like what happened to all my money in my checking?" So if you get a system down where you can marry up your credit card usage with your budget and stay in line with that, it's not as difficult as you think. It's just really a method of payment. And there's a million other good credit card perks beyond just the points and miles, with insurance, with extended warranty, having a paper trail of something, of a transaction you did that something could have happened with. I mean, credit cards protect you. People talk a lot about fraud, and don't get me wrong, there's identity fraud and things like that. But if it's as simple as someone gets a hold of your number and uses it for something that you didn't, charge to it, you're protected. Like those things get cleared up. That's known. Like those things can get it provides more good than if you, lost your $100 bill out of your pocket on the street, right? And you have no way to trace it and get it back and know that someone else used that $100 bill and not you, and you're out $100, whatever.
Yeah, it's also more. Sorry, it's also more of an. It's also more of an incentive for the credit card company, because the credit card company is essentially loaning you money. So if someone steals your identity, gets your card number, and makes a purchase that you didn't make, the credit card company has lost their money. Technically, you haven't lost your money. So they have every incentive to go get video and everything of that nature to figure out who it was that did it, so that they can recoup their money. As compared to, like, if you use your debit card, that's your money.
Yeah.
It's gone. And you might get it back, but it's going to take a lot longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even travel protection. We never add travel protection anymore because we put it on our credit cards, and those come with really great travel protection. So
absolutely. Same with rental cars, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
I never get the extra stuff. The card I use, that Chase Preferred card is a great one for that. I'm always using that as my card that I provide them with rental cars to get that extra protection. Yeah, and perks with status and things like that you can get with some of those airline and hotel cards, like that you get an extra little upgrade if there's something available, or maybe you get a reduced rate on your point redemption, or whatever the perk is too. Like there's just some, or get an annual free night with a lot of the hotel cards. Like it can be a wonderful thing that it's not even just about the points. So I just like credit cards. I love having electronic records of everything I'm doing, and not wondering where did that $100 go? Why don't I have it in my pocket anymore? Did I lose it? Did I spend it? I have no idea. Right? Like that's good for me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's so many perks. Kara, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram. It's aunt.kara. And I have no other Instagram account for all those imposters out there. I'm also
That's
on
when
Thread.
you know you've made it.
Yeah, I'm on Threads as well. I do have a Facebook page, but basically it's a replication of my Instagram. So if you don't have Instagram and you only have Facebook, you can see all my posts out through Facebook. But that Instagram's really my primary point of communication. So that's the best way to find me. I have a website as well that's under a redesign, auntcara.com, but Instagram's like my heart right there.
Perfect. We will make sure to link all of the places, and I know you've got free guides and video tutorials and great assets and resources to get people started, so we'll make sure to put all of that in the show notes. Thank you for sharing your point hacking, mile hacking, travel hacking expertise with us today. This has been such a fun conversation.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow.